In the gleaming halls of Pinnacle International Bank, where wealth whispers in every polished corner, Lena Carver walked in with a $300,000 check and a tracksuit that screamed anything but money. Sneered at and shamed by a smug manager who saw her as an outsider, she faced humiliation in front of a crowd, until her husband, Ethan Carver, a billionaire with a secret past tied to the very bank, stepped in. What started as a slap in the face turned into a jaw-dropping showdown that flipped the script, proving that real power isn't in your clothes or your account, it's in what you fight for. The morning sun streamed through the towering glass windows of Pinnacle International Bank, casting golden streaks across the polished granite floor. Lena Carver stepped inside, her sneakers squeaking faintly against the pristine surface. At 38, she carried herself with a quiet strength, though her faded green tracksuit and worn canvas shoes didn't scream wealth or status. Tucked under her arm was a slim leather briefcase holding a check for $300,000, money she'd raised for Green Horizon, the environmental charity she'd poured her heart into for the past 7 years. Beside her walked Ethan Carver, 45, her husband and the mastermind behind Carver Renewables, a billion-dollar empire in recycling technology. His charcoal gray suit hugged his frame perfectly, and a sleek steel watch peeked out from his cuff. Subtle, but outrageously expensive if you knew what to look for. He glanced at her, his brow furrowing slightly. "You sure you want to handle this solo, Lena?" She smiled, squeezing his hand. "You know I've always managed the foundation's stuff on my own. It's our deal, right?" He nodded, though his eyes lingered on her for a moment. They'd built a life together on mutual respect, her choosing simplicity despite their fortune, him balancing a high-stakes career with unwavering support for her mission. "All right," he said, pulling out his phone. "I've got a call from Berlin. I'll be in the lobby if you need me." As they crossed the threshold, the bank's atmosphere shifted. Tellers straightened at the sight of Ethan's tailored suit, while Lena's casual get-up drew quick, dismissive glances. She didn't mind. Today wasn't about appearances. It was about setting up a new account for Green Horizons' reforestation project, a hands-on task that couldn't be done through their usual online transfers. Ethan peeled off toward a corner, his voice low and steady as he answered the call, leaving Lena to approach the customer service desk. Behind it sat Olivia Grant, a sharp-looking 32-year-old with her auburn hair swept into a tight bun and a navy blazer that screamed authority. She looked up as Lena approached, her lips pressing into a thin line. It'd been a rough morning. Her boss had chewed her out over a minor mistake, and she wasn't in the mood for anything less than perfection. "Morning," Lena said, setting her briefcase down and sliding it open. "I'd like to deposit this and open a new account." She placed a $300,000 check on the counter alongside a stack of paperwork. Olivia's eyes flicked to the check, then up to Lena. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Do you have an account with us already?" "No, this is a fresh start," Lena replied, nudging the documents forward. "It's for Green Horizon, my foundation. We're launching a new reforestation initiative." Olivia's gaze lingered on the amount, $300,000, before drifting over Lena's outfit. Her tone sharpened. "That's a hefty sum. Mind if I ask where it came from?" Lena kept her cool. "We raised it at our annual gala last month. Everything's legit. Nonprofit certification, financials, it's all there." But Olivia wasn't buying it. She leaned back, crossing her arms. "Pinnacle isn't your average bank," she said, her voice loud enough to turn a few heads nearby. "We cater to a specific clientele. People don't just walk in here with that kind of money looking like, well, like they've been jogging in the park." Lena's cheeks flushed, but she held her ground. "Is there an issue with the paperwork?" Olivia's laugh was sharp, cutting. "Let's cut the nonsense. People handling legit transactions like this don't show up in sweatpants. It's suspicious. Maybe you'd be better off at a place more suited to your level." She gestured toward the door, her finger jabbing the air. Leave now or I'll have security escort you out. The words landed like a slap. Around them, the lobby grew quiet. Customers paused. Tellers froze. All eyes on Lena as humiliation burned through her. She stood there, rooted, the weight of Olivia's judgment pressing down hard. Lena's breath caught in her throat as Olivia's finger hovered in the air, pointing toward the exit like a guillotine poised to drop. The sting of those words, "suited to your level," echoed in her ears, sharper with every pair of eyes now fixed on her. She clenched her fists, the leather briefcase creaking under her grip. She'd faced skepticism before, people questioning her foundation's work, doubting her because she didn't flaunt wealth. But this was a public gut punch, and it took everything she had not to let her voice shake. "Is there a problem with the documentation?" she asked again, quieter this time, forcing the words out past the lump in her chest. Olivia smirked, leaning forward over the counter, her voice carrying a venomous edge. "The problem isn't the paperwork, sweetheart. It's you. 300 grand doesn't stroll in here with someone dressed like they're about to mow the lawn. I've got a job to do, keeping this bank's standards intact. So, last chance, walk out or I'll have you dragged out." A murmur rippled through the lobby. An older man in a suit nearby shifted uncomfortably, while a young teller behind Olivia bit her lip, clearly unsure whether to step in. Lena's face burned, her mind racing for a response that wouldn't give Olivia the satisfaction of seeing her crack. But before she could speak, a shadow fell across the counter. Ethan had hung up his call. He'd been pacing near the lobby's edge, his low voice negotiating a deal with Berlin, when the shift in the room's energy pulled his attention. Now he crossed the granite floor with deliberate steps, each one ringing out like a drumbeat in the tense silence. His suit caught the light, and that understated steel watch glinted, a detail Olivia hadn't noticed until he was right in front of her. "What's going on here?" His voice was calm, but there was a steel beneath it that made the air feel heavier. Olivia turned, her irritation flaring at the interruption. "Sir, I'm dealing with a situation," she snapped, forcing a tight smile. "If you'd like assistance, one of our other associates can—" "I think you're dealing with my wife," Ethan cut in, stepping beside Lena and resting a hand on her shoulder. His touch was light, but his presence was a wall, unshakable. The lobby seemed to hold its breath. Olivia blinked, her smile faltering as her brain scrambled to catch up. "Your wife?" "That's right," Ethan said, his tone still even, though his hazel eyes narrowed slightly. "Lena Carver, founder of Green Horizon. She's here to deposit funds for our reforestation project. Something I'm guessing you'd know if you'd bothered to look at her paperwork instead of judging her clothes." Lena glanced at him, relief softening the edges of her frayed nerves. She didn't need rescuing, she never had. But damn if it didn't feel good to have him there, turning the tables. Olivia's face underwent a rapid transformation. Confusion, then recognition, then a dawning horror as the name clicked. "Carver?" she stammered, her voice jumping an octave. "As in, Ethan Carver? Carver Renewables?" Ethan tilted his head, almost casually. "That's me. And since you're so keen on standards, I'm wondering how Pinnacle justifies humiliating my wife over a $300,000 deposit when I've got over $400 million sitting in accounts here, personal and business combined." The words hit like a thunderclap. Olivia's hands fluttered to the counter, gripping it as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. The older man in the suit coughed into his fist, hiding a smirk while the young teller's jaw dropped. Across the room, heads turned, whispers starting to buzz like static. From the glass-walled office overlooking the lobby, James Hartley caught the commotion. At 55, the bank's chairman had seen his share of dramas, but the sight of Ethan Carver, the Ethan Carver, standing at Olivia's desk with a look that could freeze lava, sent him striding down the stairs 2 at a time. His polished shoes clicked sharply as he approached, his silver hair catching the light. "Mr. Carver!" James's voice boomed with forced cheer, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of panic. "What an unexpected pleasure! What's happening here?" Ethan didn't flinch. "What's happening is your staff just told my wife she doesn't belong here, threatened to call security because she's not wearing a designer label. I'm starting to think maybe we don't belong here either. Me, my company, my money." James's smile tightened, his gaze darting to Olivia, who looked like she might bolt if given half a chance. "This is unacceptable," he said, turning to her. "Mr. Grant, explain yourself." Olivia opened her mouth, then closed it, floundering. I was just following protocol, sir. Large deposits like this without prior verification, I thought—" "You thought wrong," James snapped, cutting her off. He turned back to Ethan, hands clasped in a gesture that bordered on pleading. "Mr. Carver, Mrs. Carver, I assure you, this is a misunderstanding. We'll rectify it immediately." Lena stepped forward, her voice steady now, though the flush hadn't fully left her cheeks. "It's not just about me, Mr. Hartley. I get it. I don't look like your typical client. But what about everyone else who walks in here with their savings, their dreams, and gets treated like trash because they don't fit your mold? How many people have you turned away for no good reason?" Her words hung there, heavy and undeniable. James rubbed his jaw, clearly rattled, while Ethan watched her with a quiet pride that didn't need words. Olivia shrank back, her earlier bravado evaporating under the weight of what she'd unleashed. James cleared his throat, regaining some composure. "You're absolutely right, Mrs. Carver. This isn't how we should operate. Let's take this to my office. I'd like to discuss how we can make this right, for you and for others." Ethan nodded, but his expression stayed guarded. "Fine, but this better be more than an apology. I don't move my money lightly, James, and neither should you take my trust for granted." As they started toward the stairs, Lena caught Olivia's eye. The younger woman looked away, her face pale, hands trembling slightly as she gripped the edge of her desk. Lena almost felt sorry for her, almost, but the sting of those earlier words still lingered, and she wasn't ready to let it go just yet. The lobby buzzed behind them as they climbed the stairs, the hum of speculation following like a shadow. Whatever came next, one thing was clear. Pinnacle International Bank wouldn't be the same by the time they walked out those doors. The heavy oak door of James Hartley's office clicked shut behind them, muffling the hum of the lobby below. The room smelled faintly of leather and old money, with dark wood paneling and a wide window offering a view of New York skyline. Lena sat in a cushioned chair, her hands resting on the briefcase she'd carried in, while Ethan stood by her side, arms crossed. His posture relaxed, but his eyes sharp. James settled behind his desk, smoothing his tie as he tried to regain control of a situation spiraling far beyond a simple customer complaint. "First off," James began, his voice measured but carrying an edge of urgency, "let me apologize again. What happened out there was inexcusable. Mrs. Carver, you should have been treated with the respect you deserve, and I take full responsibility for my staff's behavior." Lena tilted her head, her expression calm but unyielding. "I appreciate that, Mr. Hartley, but apologies don't fix the bigger issue. It's not just about me getting humiliated. It's about the kind of place you're running here. If I'd been some random person off the street with no connections, what then? You'd have let Olivia kick me out without a second thought." James shifted in his seat, the weight of her words sinking in. He opened his mouth to respond, but Ethan cut in, his tone low and deliberate. "She's right. And I'll be honest, James. I'm half a mind to pull every cent I've got in this bank, $400 million, give or take, and find somewhere that doesn't make my wife feel like a criminal for wearing sneakers." The air in the room tightened. James's fingers drummed once on the desk before he caught himself, forcing a steady breath. Ethan, we've had a solid relationship for years. Pinnacle values you, your business, your trust. Let's not throw that away over one mistake. A mistake? Ethan raised an eyebrow, stepping closer to the desk. You think this is the first time someone's been judged and tossed out of here because they don't look the part? I'd bet my company it's not. And I'd know because I've been on the other side of it. James frowned, leaning forward slightly. What do you mean? Ethan's jaw tightened, and for a moment he seemed to weigh whether to say more. Then he glanced at Lena, who gave him a small nod, and he turned back to James. 20 years ago, I wasn't Ethan Carver, billionaire CEO. I was Ethan Carver, a 25-year-old kid working as a junior clerk right here at Pinnacle. No suit, no fancy watch, just a second-hand tie and a lot of ambition. I didn't fit the mold either. Lena watched him, her lips parting slightly. She'd heard bits of this story before, but not like this. Not with the raw edge in his voice that made it feel like he was peeling back a scar. James's brow furrowed deeper, a flicker of unease crossing his face. I was good at my job, Ethan went on, his gaze locking with James's. Caught a glitch in your system once, saved this bank from losing millions when some hotshot trader tried to bury a bad deal. You know what I got for it? A pat on the back and a pink slip. They said I didn't project the right image for Pinnacle. Fired me because my shoes were scuffed and my family couldn't afford a pedigree. The room went still. James's hands froze mid-air, hovering over his desk as if he'd forgotten what he meant to do with them. Lena reached out, brushing her fingers against Ethan's arm, a silent anchor. She'd known he'd started from nothing, but hearing it laid bare like this, here, in this polished office, hit differently. You're telling me, James started, his voice hoarse. You worked here? At Pinnacle? Ethan nodded, a bitter smile tugging at his lips. Right under your nose, back when you were climbing the ranks yourself. I didn't just leave. I built something better. Took that rejection and turned it into Carver Renewables. But I never forgot how it felt to be looked at like I was less than nothing. And today, I watched you let it happen to my wife. James slumped back in his chair, the color draining from his face. He rubbed a hand over his mouth, grappling with the revelation. Ethan, I had no idea. If I'd known. You didn't need to know, Lena interjected, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. That's the point. It shouldn't matter who I am or who he was. No one should have to prove their worth to you with a suit or a title. What happened out there with Olivia? That's your bank's culture staring you in the face, and it's broken. Her words landed hard, and for a moment, James just stared at her, his polished exterior cracking. He'd built his career on Pinnacle's reputation, elite, untouchable, but now, with Ethan's past and Lena's quiet fury laid bare, that foundation felt like sand slipping through his fingers. Ethan leaned forward, resting his hands on the desk, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Here's the deal, James. I'm not asking for an apology. I'm asking for change, real change. You fix this. How you train your people, how you treat everyone who walks through those doors. Or I walk away. All $400 million of me. James swallowed, his eyes darting between them. What exactly are you suggesting? Lena sat up straighter, her mind already racing ahead. Start with training, real mandatory bias training for every employee, from tellers to execs. Make respect non-negotiable, no matter what someone's wearing or how much is in their account. Then set up clear policies to back it up. And one more thing, partner with Green Horizon. We're launching a reforestation project. Let Pinnacle fund training programs for underserved communities to get into environmental jobs. Turn this mess into something good. James blinked, processing her words. He'd expected anger, maybe a demand for Olivia's head, but this was a blueprint, a challenge. He glanced at Ethan, who gave a slight nod, his expression softening just enough to show he was on board. That's ambitious, James said finally, his voice steadying. But I see the value. If we're doing this, it's not just about saving face, it's about doing better. I'll need to run it by the board, but you've got my word we'll make it happen. Ethan straightened, his gaze still piercing. Good, because I don't bluff, James. You've got one shot to prove Pinnacle's worth keeping around. Lena stood, smoothing her tracksuit with a small, defiant smile. And when you're ready to talk details about that partnership, you know where to find me. I'll be the one in sneakers. James managed a weak chuckle, but his eyes betrayed the gravity of what he'd just been handed. Not just a second chance with a major client, but a reckoning with a past he hadn't even known was his to answer for. As they turned to leave, the door swung open and a young teller peeked in, holding a folder. "Sir, I've got Mrs. Carver's paperwork ready to process, if she's still—" "Get it done," James said quickly, waving her in. "Priority. Now." Lena nodded at the teller, a flicker of gratitude in her eyes as Ethan guided her out. The weight of what Ethan had revealed still hung between them, a quiet fire that promised this wasn't over, not by a long shot. The door to James Hartley's office clicked shut behind Lena and Ethan, leaving a charged silence in their wake. Downstairs, the lobby had settled into an uneasy hum. Customers resuming their business, tellers exchanging hushed whispers about the scene they'd just witnessed. Lena's sneakers padded softly against the granite as they descended the stairs, Ethan's hand brushing hers in a quiet gesture of solidarity. She felt lighter now, not because the sting of Olivia's words had faded, but because they'd turned it into something bigger than her own hurt. Back at the customer service desk, Olivia Grant stood rigid, her auburn bun slightly askew from running her hands through it. Her face was a mask of pale shock, the bravado she'd wielded earlier nowhere to be found. She'd heard Ethan's name drop like a bomb, felt the ground shift when James rushed down to intervene, and now she was left clutching the edge of the counter, waiting for the fallout. James emerged from the stairwell a moment later, his silver hair glinting under the lights as he strode toward her. His expression was a storm, professional, calm, warring with something sharper, something personal. "Olivia," he said, his voice low but cutting, "my office, now." She followed him without a word, her heels clicking unevenly as they climbed back up. Inside, James didn't sit. He stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back, staring out at the city as if it might offer him answers. "What you did out there," he began, "wasn't just a mistake. It was a disaster. Do you have any idea who Ethan Carver is to this bank?" Olivia swallowed hard, her throat dry. I didn't know, sir. I thought she was—" "You thought she was beneath you," James snapped, turning to face her. "Because of her clothes? That's not protocol. That's prejudice. And it's not just her. Ethan told me he used to work here 20 years back. Got fired for not fitting in. Sound familiar?" Her eyes widened, a flush creeping up her neck. "He worked here?" "Yeah, and now he's got $400 million riding on whether we fix this mess. Effective immediately, you're off client-facing duties. You'll stay on payroll, but you're in the back office until I figure out if you can learn from this or if you're out entirely." Olivia's hands twisted together, her voice barely a whisper. "I didn't mean to. I was just trying to protect the bank." "Protect it?" James's laugh was bitter. "You nearly cost us one of our biggest accounts. Go home, Olivia. Think hard about what protecting really means." She nodded, her shoulders slumping as she gathered her things and slipped out, the weight of her own words crashing down on her. Meanwhile, Lena's paperwork sailed through with the young teller who'd stepped up, a kid named Marcus with quick hands and a nervous smile. He processed the $300,000 deposit and set up the new account for Green Horizon in record time, double-checking every detail like his life depended on it, When he handed Lena the confirmation, he hesitated, then added, "My brother's in one of your programs, Mrs. Carver. Got him into composting last year, changed everything for him." Lena's face softened, a real smile breaking through. "What's his name?" "Jaden," Marcus said, pride flickering in his eyes. "He's got a little garden going now. Says it's because of you." "Tell Jaden I'd love to see it sometime," she replied, tucking the receipt into her briefcase. Ethan caught her eye, his own smile tugging at the corners. A reminder of why they did this, why it mattered. 6 months later, Pinnacle International Bank looked different. Not the building, the granite and glass still gleamed, but the air inside had shifted. James had pushed through Lena's suggestions with a ferocity that surprised even his board. Bias training rolled out across every branch, mandatory for all staff from the janitors to the C-suite. New policies went up on the walls, respect first, no exceptions. And the partnership with Green Horizon, it launched with a bang. A $2 million commitment to fund environmental job training for kids from overlooked neighborhoods. Lena stood at the front of a packed conference room, her green tracksuit swapped for a simple blazer and jeans, though she still wore those same worn sneakers. She was leading a workshop for the bank's new Green Futures initiative, talking to a mix of community leaders and Pinnacle employees about reforestation's ripple effects. Ethan sat in the back, arms crossed, watching her with that quiet pride that never got old. Near the door, Olivia lingered, a clipboard in hand. She'd shown up to the first Green Horizon session a month after her demotion, tentative, unsure, dragged along by her 10-year-old son Milo, who'd begged to learn about trees. Something had clicked there. Watching Milo plant a sapling and beam up at her, she'd kept coming back, volunteering more each week, finding a purpose she hadn't known she'd lost. Today she was helping coordinate sign-ins, her navy blazer replaced with a loose sweater, her face softer than it had ever been behind that counter. After the workshop, she approached Lena, hesitating. "Mrs. Carver," she started, her voice low. "Milo's school project got an A because of what he learned here. I wanted to say thank you, and I'm sorry for that day." Lena studied her, the memory of Olivia's finger jabbing the air flashing back. But there was something different now, something real in her eyes. "You can't undo it," Lena said, her tone firm but not cruel. "But you're here. That counts. Bring Milo to the next planting day. He'd like it." Olivia nodded, a faint smile breaking through. He'd love that. Outside, the city buzzed on, but inside Pinnacle, the change was palpable. Marcus had been promoted to community liaison, steering the Green Futures initiative with a passion that mirrored Lena's. James, once a fixture in boardrooms, now showed up at planting sites, sleeves rolled up, dirt on his hands. And the bank's numbers? They climbed. Not just from goodwill, but from new clients who'd been ignored too long by places like the old Pinnacle. As Lena and Ethan stepped into the elevator to leave, he squeezed her hand. "You didn't just save the day back there," he said, his voice soft. "You saved a lot of days for a lot of people." She leaned into him, the fume of the elevator wrapping around them. "We did it together, always have." The doors slid open, and they walked out into the sunlight, the weight of 6 months' work settling into something solid, something lasting. The late afternoon sun dipped low over New York, painting the streets in hues of gold as Lena and Ethan stepped out of Pinnacle International Bank. The air carried a crisp edge, a hint of fall settling in, and Lena tugged her jacket a little tighter around her. Her sneakers scuffed the pavement, the same pair she'd worn that day 6 months ago, when Olivia's words had cut her down. Now they felt like a badge, proof she didn't need to change who she was to change the world around her. Ethan walked beside her, his suit jacket slung over one shoulder, the steel watch catching the light as he glanced her way. "You were incredible in there," he said, his voice warm but steady. "That room was hanging on your every word." She smiled, small but genuine. "It's not about me, Ethan. It's about what happens next. Marcus running that initiative, Olivia showing up for Milo, even James getting his hands dirty. That's what sticks." He nodded, slipping his hand into hers as they crossed the street toward their car. "Still can't believe you gave her a shot after everything. Most people wouldn't." Lena shrugged, her eyes tracing the skyline ahead. "Most people don't get the chance to see someone's worst day turn into something better. She messed up. Badly. But she's trying. That's more than I expected." They paused by the car, Ethan leaning against the door as he looked at her. "You've got a bigger heart than I do." "I'd have let her sink." "Maybe," she said, nudging him with her elbow. "But you didn't. You're the one who laid it all out in that office. Your past, your fight. That's what got us here." He chuckled, shaking his head. "Team effort, then, always has been." As they climbed in and the engine hummed to life, Lena let her gaze drift out the window. 6 months ago, she'd walked into Pinnacle feeling small, her worth measured by a tracksuit and a sneer. Now the bank was planting roots, literal and figurative, with Green Horizons' help. Marcus's brother Jaden had his garden, Olivia's son Milo had his A, and dozens of kids from forgotten corners of the city were learning trades that could lift them up. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress, built from a day she'd almost let break her. Ethan's voice pulled her back. "What's on your mind?" She turned to him, her expression soft but resolute. "Just thinking, real worth isn't in what you wear or what you've got in the bank. It's in what you do with what you're given. We proved that." He squeezed her hand, the city sliding past them in a blur. "Yeah, we did." The car rolled on, carrying them toward home, but the echo of what they'd started lingered. A quiet reminder that every day offers a chance to see past the surface, to build something better, one choice at a time.